The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with tension. Massive crystalline pillars stretched toward the distant ceiling, where artificial stars twinkled in a perfect recreation of the galaxy's core. Around the circular table, representatives of the most advanced species in known space argued in their varied tongues, their universal translators creating a symphony of worried voices. At the lower end of the table sat Mark Wilson, the human representative. He watched quietly as the other species boasted about their achievements and military might. The rock-skinned granite lords, the energy-based light weavers, and the highly advanced meta-minds, all of them looked down at humans as the galaxy's cowards. The humans, snorted Ambassador Stone, his rocky features grinding together in what passed for a laugh among his kind. They put warning labels on their food. They have safety protocols for their safety protocols. The chamber filled with various sounds of amusement. Mark remained silent, used to such treatment. Humans had been part of the galactic community for only 50 years, and their careful approach to everything had earned them much ridicule. The council leader, a tall being made of pure light, raised his glowing hand for silence. "We face a crisis," he announced, his voice grave. "The neutron star, HD 7249, has deviated from its predicted path. It will collide with the Crimson System in 30 standard days." Silence fell over the chamber. The Crimson System, home to over 8 billion beings, lay directly in the path of destruction. "The inhabitants must be evacuated," the council leader continued. "We need volunteers for a rescue mission. The radiation levels near the neutron star will be extreme." Mark looked around the table, watching as the supposedly brave species suddenly found the floor very interesting. The granite lords, who boasted about their unbreakable bodies, shifted uncomfortably. The light weavers, who claimed mastery over energy itself, dimmed noticeably. "Surely the granite lords will volunteer?" asked a meta-mind representative. "Your bodies can withstand incredible pressure." Ambassador Stone's rocky face cracked in a frown. "The radiation would turn us to dust. Perhaps the light weavers, with their energy manipulation." The light weaver representative flickered anxiously. "Our energy forms would be disrupted by the neutron star's influence. The meta-minds, with their advanced technology. Our ships are too valuable to risk." The meta-mind replied quickly. "The probability of success is below acceptable parameters." Mark listened to each species make their excuses. These were the same beings who had laughed at human safety measures, at their careful planning, at their cowardly approach to space exploration. The council leader's glow dimmed with disappointment. "If no one volunteers, the Crimson System's population will perish." Mark stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. All eyes turned to him. "Earth Space Command will handle the evacuation," he said quietly. Laughter erupted around the table again, but this time with an edge of desperation. "You? The species that requires 3 levels of authorization to launch a shuttle," Ambassador Stone rumbled. "The ones who spend more time on safety drills than actual space flight." A light weaver flickered mockingly. Mark smiled slightly. "Yes. Us. The ones who plan for every possibility. The ones who build backup systems for our backup systems. The ones you call cowards." He touched his comm unit. "Earth Space Command. This is Representative Wilson, requesting immediate connection to Admiral Hayes." The holographic image of Admiral Hayes appeared above the council table. A woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and steady eyes looked at the assembled aliens. "Send us the data," Admiral Hayes said after Mark explained the situation. "We'll begin preparation immediately. The HSS Prudence and her crew will handle the evacuation." The council leader moved forward. "You understand the danger. The radiation levels alone." "With all due respect," Admiral Hayes interrupted, "we've been preparing for scenarios like this since we first reached space. The Prudence was built specifically for high-risk rescue operations. Captain Walker and his crew trained for exactly these situations." Mark watched the other representatives' expressions change from mockery to confusion, then to the first hints of respect. "Maybe," Mark said quietly as he gathered his things, "What you see as cowardice is just a different kind of courage. The courage to plan, to prepare, and to face danger with every possible precaution." He walked toward the chamber's exit, then turned one last time. "We'll begin the evacuation in 6 hours. The Prudence and her crew will save those people. Not because we're brave, but because we're careful enough to do it right." The chamber remained silent long after he left. The HS Prudence floated in Earth's orbital dock, its sleek hull gleaming under the station's lights. At 1,200 meters long, it was not the largest ship in Earth's fleet, but it was arguably the most specialized. Every inch of the vessel had been designed with one purpose: saving lives in the most dangerous conditions imaginable. Captain Tom Walker stood at the observation window, watching as crews swarmed over the ship's hull, performing last-minute checks. His weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass, showing the lines earned from 20 years of rescue missions. "Engineering reports all systems are triple-checked, Captain," said First Officer Bill Adams, walking up beside him. "Mike in engineering says the radiation shielding is at 400% of normal specifications." Tom nodded. "And the evacuation pods?" "All 500 of them tested and ready. Each pod can hold 20 people, and we have parts to build more if needed. The automated assembly line is prepped." The captain turned as Admiral Hayes entered the observation room. She carried a data pad, her face serious. "The latest calculations just came in," she said, handing the pad to Tom. "The neutron star is moving faster than initially predicted. You'll have 25 days, not 30. Tom studied the numbers, his expression unchanging. "We planned for this possibility. That's why we're launching in 4 hours instead of 6. The alien representatives are watching from the station's main hall," Bill mentioned. "Still think we're going to fail." Admiral Hayes smiled thinly. "Let them watch. Show them how Earth handles a crisis." In the ship's engineering section, Chief Engineer Mike Rogers supervised the final power core checks. The Prudence carried 3 separate fusion cores when most ships had one. Other species called it wasteful. Humans called it being prepared. "Radiation shielding is holding at maximum," reported his assistant. "All backup systems are green." Mike patted the nearest wall. "That's my girl. She's ready for anything." The medical bay was a hive of activity as Dr. Jane Thompson oversaw the loading of supplies. The bay could handle thousands of patients, with equipment for every known species in the Crimson system. "Another shipment of radiation treatment kits just arrived," one of her nurses reported. "That makes 3 times what we calculated we'd need." "Good," Jane replied. "In rescue operations, there's no such thing as too prepared." On the bridge, Tom settled into his command chair. Screens lit up around him, showing every system, every backup, every safety measure that made other species mock humanity's cowardice. "All stations report," he ordered. "Engineering ready, all systems green. Medical bay prepared for casualties. Navigation plotted with 7 alternate routes. Life support at full capacity with quadruple redundancy. Evacuation pods prepped and ready." Tom opened a channel to the station. "Control, this is HS Prudence, requesting departure clearance." From the station's main hall, the alien representatives watched through the massive windows. Ambassador Stone stood with his arms crossed, his rocky features set in a skeptical expression. "Look at them," he rumbled. 3 separate shield checks before launch. What a waste of time. A MetaMind representative floated nearby. "Their ship carries enough backup systems to build 2 more ships. Inefficient." Admiral Hayes, standing behind them, spoke quietly. "Those backup systems might be the difference between life and death for 8 billion people." The Prudence's engines glowed to life, the massive ship moving with surprising grace. Its hull gleamed with the latest adaptive armor, layers of protection that had taken years to perfect. "Hess Prudence, you are cleared for departure," the control tower announced. "Good hunting." Tom's voice came over the general frequency, calm and determined. "This is Captain Walker. We're beginning our mission to evacuate the Crimson system. To those who doubt us, watch carefully. You're about to see why humans check everything 3 times. The Prudence accelerated smoothly, its form growing smaller against the star-filled background. The alien representatives watched in silence as humanity's cowards headed toward certain danger, armed with nothing but careful planning and backup systems. They're really going to try it, Ambassador Stone muttered. No, Admiral Hayes corrected him. They're really going to do it. There's a difference between being afraid and being careful. We're about to show you what that difference means. The Prudence disappeared into hyperspace, carrying humanity's best hope for saving 8 billion lives. And not a single safety check had been skipped. The HS Prudence cut through hyperspace like a knife through silk, its triple-reinforced hull humming with power. Inside the ship's main bridge, Captain Tom Walker studied the readouts from their first long-range scan of the neutron star. The radiation levels are higher than predicted, Navigation Officer Roberts said, his fingers dancing over the controls. Even at this distance, they're above our initial estimates. Tom nodded, unsurprised. That's why we brought the experimental shield arrays. Mike, how are they holding? From his engineering station, Mike's voice came through clear. The new shields are performing exactly as designed, Captain. All those extra tests back on Earth are paying off. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. Each member had trained for years in simulation chambers, running this exact scenario hundreds of times. Other species might call it excessive. Humans called it Tuesday. Contact on long-range sensors, Bill reported from his station. Looks like, yes, a Lightweaver scout ship. They're observing us. Tom allowed himself a small smile. Of course they were being watched. The so-called brave species wanted to see the cowardly humans fail. Let them watch, he said. Linda, start the hourly radiation exposure checks for all crew members. Science Officer Linda looked up from her station. Already done, Captain. First results show our protective measures are holding perfectly. The radiation suits are working better than expected. The ship's mess hall was half full as crew members ate in shifts, following the strict schedule designed to maintain peak efficiency. The conversations were focused but not tense. This crew had trained together too long to waste energy on nervousness. Did you hear? One crew member said to another. The Lightweavers are following us, probably taking bets on when we'll turn back. Their loss, his companion replied, checking his radiation badge out of habit. More lives for us to save. In the medical bay, Dr. Jane was running another check on their radiation treatment supplies when the ship's sensors detected something unexpected. Captain to medical bay. Tom's voice came over the comm. Jane, we're picking up some odd readings ahead. Could be a radiation storm. How ready are we? We've got enough anti-radiation medication to treat the entire crew 3 times over, she replied. And the emergency protocols have been drilled into everyone. We're ready. The radiation storm appeared on their sensors like an angry red cloud. Most ships would avoid it completely, adding days to their journey. But the Prudence had been built for exactly this kind of challenge. All hands, this is the captain, Tom announced shipwide. Radiation storm ahead. All crew to safety stations. Double-check your radiation badges. This is not a drill. The crew moved with calm precision. Every person on board had performed this procedure at least 50 times in training. As the ship entered the storm's edge, readings began to spike. Radiation levels at 300% of standard, Linda reported. Shield arrays holding steady. No penetration detected. Mike's voice came from engineering. All power systems nominal. We can maintain the shield strength for 72 hours if needed. The Lightweaver ship following them had already turned back, unwilling to risk the storm. But the Prudence pushed forward, its multiple layers of protection holding firm against the cosmic onslaught. Navigation, status? Tom asked. Course is steady, Robert replied. The storm will actually push us slightly ahead of schedule if we maintain this trajectory. The storm raged around them for 6 hours. Every 15 minutes, crew members checked their radiation badges. Every 30 minutes, shield strength was verified. Every hour, full system diagnostics were run. When they emerged from the other side, not a single crew member had received more than minimal exposure. "Send the radiation exposure report to Earth," Tom ordered. "Let them see that proper preparation beats bravado every time." Bill looked up from his console. "Sir, the Lightweaver ship is back. They're broadcasting on open frequencies, asking how we survived the storm." "Send them our standard safety protocols," Tom replied. "Maybe they'll learn something about real courage." The Prudence continued its journey toward the Crimson system, its crew more confident than ever. They had just proven that humanity's excessive caution was anything but excessive when lives were on the line. "Next challenge is 12 hours ahead," Robert announced. "Another radiation front." "Good," Tom said. "We'll handle it the same way we handle everything. Carefully, thoroughly, and successfully." The ship pressed on, carrying its cargo of hope and determination toward those who needed saving, and not a single safety protocol was skipped along the way. The HS Prudence's sensors blared with warning signals as they entered the outer edges of the Crimson system. The neutron star's deadly radiation had already begun affecting the local space, creating conditions far worse than anything they'd encountered so far. "These readings can't be right," Linda said, double-checking her instruments. "The radiation levels are 5 times higher than the Council's data indicated." Tom gripped his command chair tightly. "They're right. The Council's data was old. Mike, how are our shields holding?" "Primary shields at 85% and holding," Mike reported from engineering. "Secondary and tertiary shields ready to engage. But sir, at these levels, we'll burn through power faster than expected." The bridge crew worked silently as they processed this new information. Their careful planning had prepared them for bad conditions, but this was beyond even their worst-case scenarios. "Message from Earth Command," Bill announced. "The Meta-Minds are offering their latest calculations. They say the mission is impossible now. They're recommending we abort." Tom stood up and walked to the main viewport. The red giant star of the Crimson system burned in the distance, its light distorted by the approaching neutron star's influence. 8 billion lives," he said quietly. "We didn't come this far to turn back. Linda, start recalculating our approach vectors. Mike, I need options for boosting our shield strength." "Captain," Mike's voice came through with determination. "Remember those experimental shield modifications we tested, but never officially approved? The ones that needed 17 safety checks." Tom smiled. "The ones we ran those checks on anyway, just in case." "Yes, sir. They're ready to deploy. It'll give us another 40% shield strength." In the medical bay, Jane was already adapting to the new situation. "All medical staff, begin preparing the enhanced radiation treatment protocols." "Yes, the ones we practiced but hoped we'd never need." The ship pushed deeper into the system, its hull creaking under the strain. Every hour brought new challenges, but the crew met each one with the same methodical approach that other species mocked. "Energy signature detected," Robert reported. It's a Lightweaver ship, or what's left of one. Looks like they tried to beat us here." Tom shook his head sadly. "Scan for survivors." "None detected, sir. Their shields failed catastrophically. They weren't prepared for these conditions." The crew observed a moment of silence for their fallen rivals. Then they returned to their tasks, more determined than ever. "Engineering to bridge," Mike called. "The experimental shields are working, but we found a problem. The power drain is higher than our simulations showed." "Options?" Tom asked. "We ran a drill for this scenario last month," Mike replied. "Remember the crazy idea about routing power through the backup life support systems? The one everyone said was too cautious to even test." "The one we tested anyway," Tom finished. "Do it." The ship's lights dimmed briefly as power was rerouted. The shield strength jumped by another 15%. "Message from the first colony in the system," Bill reported. Population 12 million. They're begging for help. Their own ships can't get through this radiation. Tom straightened in his chair. Tell them help is coming. Linda, calculate the safest approach vector to that colony. Robert, begin plotting evacuation routes that our pods can handle. Mike, prepare to deploy those extra pod-building materials we brought just in case. The Prudence turned toward the colony, its enhanced shields glowing brightly against the deadly radiation. Every system was being pushed to its limits, but every system had been tested for exactly these conditions. Sir, Bill said quietly, I just want to say, all those extra drills, all those safety checks everyone complained about, they're the only reason we're still alive right now. Tom nodded. Courage isn't about rushing in blindly. It's about facing danger with everything you've got. And right now, everything we've got is exactly what these people need. The ship pressed forward, its human crew exemplifying a different kind of bravery. The kind that plans, prepares, and persists. The kind that might just save 8 billion lives. All hands, Tom announced ship-wide. This is the moment we trained for. Every drill, every safety check, every backup plan. It all comes down to this. Let's show the galaxy what human courage really looks like. The Prudence pushed on toward the first colony, its shields holding firm against the impossible conditions. The rescue operation was about to begin, and humanity's cowards were the only ones left to attempt it. Red emergency lights bathed the HS Prudence's corridors as the ship maintained position above the first colony. Through the viewports, the massive evacuation pods descended like gentle giants toward the planet's surface. First wave of pods successfully deployed, Robert reported from his station. Auto-navigation systems functioning perfectly. All those extra landing simulations are paying off. Tom watched the main screen as the pods touched down with precision that would have made Earth's best pilots proud. How many can we load in this first wave? 10,000 per pod, 50 pods in this wave. Linda calculated. That's 500,000 people we can evacuate right now. The automated pod assembly line is already building more. In the ship's massive cargo bay, Mike supervised as machines transformed raw materials into additional evacuation pods. What other species had called wasteful extra supplies were now becoming lifeboats for thousands. Engineering to bridge, Mike called. The assembly lines working better than expected. Those triple redundant systems are letting us work at 120% capacity. The first pods began their return journey, packed with terrified colonists. The Prudence's massive hangar bays opened to receive them, the ship's enhanced shields extending to protect the incoming vessels. Medical team to Hangar Bay 3. Jane's voice came over the comm. We've got our first evacuees. Remember your radiation protocols, every single one. In the hangar, the medical team worked with practiced efficiency. Each evacue was scanned, treated for radiation exposure, and processed through the ship's massive internal safety systems. Captain, Bill called out, we're receiving distress calls from 3 other colonies in the system. The radiation, it's getting worse faster than predicted. Tom studied the tactical display. The neutron star's approach was accelerating, its deadly radiation already making parts of the system completely uninhabitable. How many evacuated so far? He asked. 3 million from this colony, Linda reported. But at this rate, she didn't need to finish. Everyone on the bridge could do the math. They had too many people to save and not enough time to save them all, not with their careful, methodical approach. Sir, Robert said quietly, we could increase our pod deployment speed by 40% if we skipped the tertiary safety checks. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew what those safety checks meant. They'd drilled them countless times, knew exactly why each one mattered. Tom stood up, his face set with determination. No, we stick to our protocols. Those checks exist for a reason. Mike. Engineering here. Remember that crazy idea you had during training? The one about modifying the pod shield generators to work in parallel. A pause. The one that needed 27 separate safety tests. The one we actually ran all those tests on. That's the one. Implement it. The next hour was organized chaos as the crew adapted their rescue operation. Every pod's shield generator was modified according to the extensively tested protocols. The result? They could now deploy 70 pods at once instead of 50, without compromising safety. New problem, Linda announced. The radiation is affecting the pod's navigation systems. The automated controls are starting to fail. Switch to manual control, Tom ordered. Good thing we trained every crew member in pod piloting, just in case. Crew members who had complained about those extra pilot training sessions now took control of pod clusters, guiding them safely through the increasing radiation. 5 million evacuated, Bill reported. 7 million. 10 million. The hours blurred together as the Prudence's crew worked tirelessly. Every safety protocol was followed, every check performed, every procedure carried out exactly as practiced. Sir, Linda called out, the neutron star's radiation is starting to affect our primary shields. Engage secondary shields, Tom ordered. And get ready with the tertiaries. We're not leaving until every single person is evacuated from this colony. The ship shuddered as another wave of radiation washed over it. But its shields held, its crew remained protected, and its evacuation pods continued their vital work. Message from Earth Command, Bill announced. The other species, they're calling us heroes now. Tom shook his head. We're not heroes. We're just careful people doing what careful people do, saving lives by following safety protocols. The Prudence continued its mission, a beacon of hope in a dying system. Its human crew, once mocked as cowards, worked with methodical precision to achieve what the braver species had deemed impossible. Because sometimes true courage wears a radiation badge and runs triple safety checks. The HS Prudence shuddered violently as another gravitational wave hit. Warning signals blared across every deck as the neutron star's approach accelerated beyond all predictions. Time to collision revised. Linda shouted over the noise. The star will hit in 6 hours, not 12. Tom gripped his command chair as the ship stabilized. How many still left on the surface? 2,000 in the last colony, Bill reported. But sir, at these radiation levels, we'll lose shield integrity before we can complete the evacuation. Through the main viewport, they could see the neutron star's approach distorting space itself. The massive object's gravitational pull was already affecting their orbit, making each rescue attempt increasingly dangerous. Engineering to bridge, Mike's voice crackled through static. Primary shields at 20%. Secondary shields failing. We've got maybe 2 hours of protection left. The bridge crew looked at their captain. They had successfully evacuated millions, but now 2,000 lives hung in the balance. The safe choice, the cowardly choice, would be to leave now while they could still escape. How many pods do we have left? Tom asked quietly. 2 functional pods, Robert answered. We've used or lost all others. These last 2, we kept them in reserve, following emergency protocols. Tom smiled slightly. Those excessive emergency protocols were about to prove their worth again. Status of radiation shielding on those pods. Triple shielded, sir, Mike replied. We can modify them to withstand one last trip, but the pods will be destroyed in the process. Dr. Jane's voice came over the comm. Medical bay ready to receive final evacuees. We've prepared for extreme radiation exposure cases. The ship rocked again as another gravitational wave hit. Warning lights flashed as system after system reported critical stress levels. Sir, Bill said, checking his readings, Earth Command is ordering us to withdraw. They say 2,000 lives isn't worth losing the ship and crew. Tom stood up, surveying his bridge crew. Each face showed the same determination he felt. Send our response, he ordered. Tell them. Humanity doesn't leave anyone behind. Not if there's even a chance to save them. The next hour was a symphony of organized chaos. Every crew member knew their role, Every system was pushed to its absolute tested limits. The 2 remaining pods were modified according to emergency protocols that had been drilled countless times. "Pods ready for launch," Robert reported. "But, sir, we'll need pilots. The radiation will fry any automated systems instantly." "I'll take one," Bill said, standing up from his station. "And I'll take the other," Robert added. Tom nodded, having expected nothing less from his crew. "The rest of us will keep the Prudence stable as long as possible. Your radiation suits have been triple-checked." Both men nodded. They had personally verified every safety measure, just as they'd been trained. The pods launched into the hell that space had become. Bill and Robert piloted with precision, born from hundreds of practice runs, finding paths through the gravitational chaos that no computer could calculate. First pod loaded. Bill's voice crackled through the static. 1,000 on board. Minutes later, Robert's confirmation came through. Second pod full. Beginning return journey. The Prudence's shields flared constantly now, fighting against forces that should have destroyed them hours ago. But human engineering, backed by countless safety measures and redundancies, held firm. "Pods on final approach," Linda reported. "But the radiation, it's off the charts. A hangar bay shields won't hold." "Reroute power from life support to the hangar shields," Tom ordered. "We've all got radiation suits. We can last an hour without life support." Another safety protocol that had seemed excessive during training now meant the difference between life and death. The pods docked with seconds to spare. As the last evacuee stepped onto the Prudence's deck, the pod's shields failed catastrophically. "All hands, brace for emergency jump," Tom commanded. "Engineering, give us everything you've got." The Prudence leaked into hyperspace just as the neutron star's gravity would have trapped them forever. Behind them, the Crimson System's sun began to distort, marking the beginning of the end. But they had done it. Every single person had been evacuated, saved by a crew that believed preparation and caution were the highest forms of courage. "Status report," Tom called out as they fled through hyperspace. "All evacuees accounted for," Jane reported. "No casualties." Because sometimes, the most important victories are won not by those who dare greatly, but by those who prepare greatly. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was silent as Captain Tom Walker finished his mission report. Gone were the sneers and mocking laughter that had once greeted human representatives. Instead, the assembled aliens watched with newfound respect as holographic displays showed the Prudence's rescue mission in detail. 8,247,932 souls saved, Tom concluded. 0 casualties. All because we followed our protocols. Ambassador Stone, who had once laughed at human caution, stood up slowly. His rocky features shifted into what passed for amazement among his kind. "Your ship survived radiation levels that would have destroyed our strongest vessels," he rumbled. "How?" "Triple redundant shields," Mike answered from his place beside Tom. "Backup systems for our backup systems. All those extra safety measures you called wasteful. They kept us alive." The Lightweaver representative flickered thoughtfully. "We lost our best ship attempting what you achieved. We thought bravery meant facing danger without fear." "Bravery isn't about not being afraid," Tom replied. "It's about acknowledging the danger and preparing for it. Every drill we ran, every safety check we performed, every backup plan we made, that was courage in action." Dr. James stepped forward, holding up a medical data pad. "Our casualty rate was 0 because we planned for everything. Those radiation suits you mocked, they saved thousands. The extra medical supplies you called excessive, they treated millions." The council leader's glow brightened with interest. "And the evacuation pods. Our data suggested such a large-scale evacuation was impossible." Bill smiled. "That's because your data didn't account for human thoroughness. We didn't just build enough pods. We built the machines to make more pods. We didn't just train pilots. We trained every crew member to be a pilot. The humans have redefined what we understand as courage. the council leader announced. We saw their caution as cowardice, their preparation as paranoia. We were wrong. The meta-mind representative floated forward. Our calculations showed the mission had a 99.9% chance of failure. How did you succeed against such odds? Because we didn't try to beat the odds, Tom explained. We planned for them. Every possible failure point was identified, every solution tested, every backup plan rehearsed. The holographic display showed the Prudence's final moments in the Crimson system, shields glowing as it protected the last evacuees from the neutron star's fury. Your ship, Ambassador Stone observed, it survived because you assumed it would fail. All those backup systems. Exactly, Mike confirmed. We built the Prudence assuming everything would go wrong. Then we prepared for even worse scenarios. That's not cowardice. That's responsibility. Admiral Hayes, who had remained quiet until now, stood up. The Prudence and her crew have demonstrated a truth we've known on Earth for centuries. Real courage isn't about rushing in. It's about having the discipline to prepare, the patience to plan, and the dedication to protect others. The council chamber erupted in applause, a cacophony of different sounds from different species, all expressing the same respect. In light of this achievement, the council leader announced, we propose that Earth take charge of establishing a galactic rescue protocol. Your methods, once mocked, have proven superior to all others. Tom looked at his crew, seeing pride in their eyes. They had done more than save lives. They had changed the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be brave. We accept, he said. And our first lesson will be this. True courage wears a safety harness. It runs emergency drills. It triple-checks its equipment. Because when lives are on the line, there's no such thing as being too careful. As the council session ended, Ambassador Stone approached Tom privately. Captain, he rumbled, my people once called humans cowards. Now we understand. You are the bravest of us all. Not despite your caution, but because of it. Tom smiled, touching the radiation badge he still wore out of habit. The bravest thing anyone can do is admit they might fail, and then prepare to succeed anyway. The HSS Prudence's mission had done more than save a system's population. It had taught the galaxy that courage comes in many forms, and sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who take the time to check their safety equipment one more time. Because in the end, it's not about being fearless, it's about being prepared. And that was humanity's greatest strength all along.